Good evening. It's Monica from Life is Art, and it's Wednesday. Let's create. We are going to be making a bit of a fun fold card today and playing with some of the new stuff. New stuff from the catalog that just launched at the beginning of October. Hey, Lisa. Nice to see you're watching. Hello, hello. If you're popping on to watch, just say hello or howdy so I know you're here. And let me just grab the catalog. I put it away earlier and now I want it back out. So this is the new October to December catalog, and we are going to be using a stamp set from the Freshly Baked collection, which is such a fun collection, and it goes perfectly with our crop that's starting tomorrow. It's called Freshly Baked. Love the colors. Love all the motifs. Hey, Mom, nice to see you're watching. So we're going to be using some of the coordinating cardstock from this collection. But we're going to be looking at the Freshly Baked Scrapbooking Stamp and thin cuts for the project that we're working on this evening. And yeah, so we were going to see how that comes together. Let me just pop that back in the drawer so I've got lots of space because I'm going to be doing the thin cut stuff, so I need room to get out my die cut machine. All right, so let's start with the base for our card. And so we're actually going to be starting with an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. And with this 8.5 by 11, we're actually going to be making 2 card bases. So 2 card bases can be made out of an 8.5 by 11, which is lovely. Hey, Karen, nice to see you're watching. And so that is exciting. Now, this is a very simple, like I'm calling it a fun fold, but it is so super simple. Anybody can make it, guaranteed. I'm going to be using my ruler and bone folder to do some scoring. So the first thing we need to do, and I realize I'm kind of way off in the corner of your screen right now. We're going to line up our card on our Versamat so it's nice and square, hopefully. And yes, I'm still in the frame, just way off to the side. That's because we're going to do some stamping. So I've got my stamping mat out too. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to score it in half. So at 5.5, I've got it so that the 11 inches is going vertically. We're going to score it at 5.5 all the way across. And if you have a scoreboard, you can totally do that. And then we're also going to score it in half on the 8.5 side, which puts us at 4.25. So just lining that up there like that. 4.25. Lovely. And then I need to grab my X-Acto blade. And this is because we're going to cut on an angle. And unfortunately, most paper trimmers can't cut across this kind of an angle because it's just too long. There's just too much paper there. Your paper will be poking out. You can see it goes right off the Versamat. It'll be sticking out either end of your paper trimmer. So when we get to things like this, we kind of need to use our cutting blade and a sturdy ruler. Unless you have a big guillotine cutter, a big guillotine might trim that on the diagonal. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim from the top right corner. And yes, it's important that you make note of this. I made one earlier and I trimmed it the opposite way. It turned out just fine. But I kind of want it to do it this way this time. So I'm going from the top right corner to the bottom left. And I'm actually going to have to turn a little bit just because my hand, can't bend backwards so well. So I'm going from my top right to my bottom left. Now, it also depends. If you're not fussy about what side of your cardstock, then, it doesn't matter as much. But I want a specific side of my cardstock to be showing on the front of my card. So just trim it all the way down. And of course, the lovely thing about our Marissa mat is that it's also a self-healing mat. So you can absolutely go ahead and use a blade on there. It doesn't bother it at all. Okay, so now we have 2 card bases that look like this, you know, this kind of thing happening. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, let me just flip this one over. We are, actually, no, it was right, this way. We are going to fold the top down. And because I'm, you know, using my ruler and my Versamat and my bone folder and not a scoreboard, I want to make sure that this lines up with the outside edge before I give it the good sturdy crease with my bone folder. Okay, so we're folding down that. I'm going to scooch this one out of the way because I'll use that later. Folding down that top corner. Okay, and then I'm going to take this side and I'm going to fold it in and make sure that the bottom lines up and fold it over like that. Beautiful. Now I notice that this one actually sticks out just a tiny smidge. So if that happens to you, you can just do that. I wasn't quite right at the corner when I did my cutting on an angle. So that is the base for our card, and that is the extent of the fancy fold. So our card is going to open like this, and then like this to get into our card. Okay? So that's our base, and then we need to start decorating. And so for this, I wanted to add a little bit of a darker layer. So this is the flamingo that comes in the coordinating cardstock for the Freshly Baked collection. Hey, Heather, nice to see you're watching. Shannon's here too. Awesome. Everybody's popping on. And so I chose to use this scarlet color as an extra layer. And sometimes red and pink don't do the right thing together, but these two work well together. And then I've got my stamp and my thin cuts from this Freshly Baked Scrapbooking Stamp and Thin Cut set. And so you can see on here we've got some lovely little cookies. Look at all those shapes. We've got snowman and a heart and a star and a tree and a gingerbread man. And then there's like a little icing drizzle border. We've got one cute cookie. There's our piping bag. Life is short, lick the bowl. And then there's a little star there as well. So those are all fun. And then we also have the thin cuts. And so in the thin cuts, you're going to get something that's not in the stamp set. So they're always available to purchase without the thin cuts. But without purchasing the thin cut, you don't get this funky one. And what this creates is a cooling rack for your cookies to sit on. And so we've got all the shapes of the cookies and the piping bag and then this fun cooling rack. So let me just show you what this looks like when, let me show you maybe on the pink. I'll show you on the back side. Once you have cut it out, and I tried it today for the first time. And when I'm cutting sort of an intricate die, I always take an extra piece of cardstock, just scrap cardstock, and I stick it underneath my cutting plate. So it's, I have a big shot. So I put, you know, the thing that goes in, and then my extra piece of cardstock, then my cutting plate, and then, you know, of course, your paper and your die, and then your top plate. And I ran it back and forth, in, out, and I pulled it out, and literally 80% of the little squares just fell right out. And then what I did for the rest, I just took the handle of my piercer and I did this. I like flicked it back and forth, and I had confetti flying everywhere, little tiny square confetti. I was so impressed because it cut so well. Because I've had, you know, small dies that cut out little things, and you'd have to sit there with the piercing tool and try to get all the little pieces out. And this one worked just awesome. I was so happy. So what I want to do is I'm going to layer these up. Oh, and I cut this out of pewter cardstock, and I used the this is the true color side. My example that I did earlier, which I'll show you when we're done, I used the lighter side, and I think either works just great. It would be super awesome with silver foil, like silver paper. But yeah. But one thing that I noticed about this cooling rack is that it's got rounded corners. So I thought I'm going to just go ahead and take my scissors and I'm going to round the corners of this piece of scarlet cardstock. And I probably didn't even tell you the size that I cut this. Now, some people have corner rounders and use them very well. And I have a corner rounder and I use it very poorly. I never seem to be able to get it to work quite right. And so I get frustrated with it and I usually mess up my paper. So I just use my scissors. But let me just give you the measurement here. So this piece of scarlet is 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And that's about the size. Let me just lay it on here. It's about the size of the cooling rack. The cooling rack is just under 3.5 by 4 3/4. So it's a good size for putting on the front of a card or adding to a layout. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me flip this over so I'm actually sticking it on the proper side. I want to add this kind of at a little jaunty angle like so. So I'm only going to put adhesive on this triangle part. So I'm going to use my fingers as kind of my, don't go past here guide. And I'm going to use liquid glue for this, mainly because I need to order some more glue, more adhesive. So we're going to go ahead with the liquid glue. And we're going to stick this down at a little bit of an angle here. Oh, that's too much of an angle. I want to make sure everything is still inside the bounds of the card so that it'll fit in the envelope, because this is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 size card. And then you just want to make sure that you didn't accidentally glue it to this other triangle, because otherwise your card's not going to open, right? We don't want that. Hey Claire, nice to see you're watching. Okay, so then we want to add our cooling rack on here. And I'm going to tip it the other way and add it kind of at this sort of an angle. Let me just tuck that under. So when you are gluing something like this that's kind of intricate, there's a few things you can do. Some people like to use a Xyron machine to add adhesive. Some people put it on the thing that you rub and then you peel it off. What I do is I just take my good old liquid glue and I use my hand and I just kind of drizzle out some in a nice thin layer on my hand. Hopefully no big lumps and bumps. And then I take this and I just tap it into the glue on my hand and get glue in all the places I want to get glue. And we were discussing this earlier today about why I use my hand and not an extra piece of paper or something, because there's a lot of people that do that. They just have a silicone mat on the side and they do that. But the reason I use my hand is because I would probably end up sticking something in the glue if it was sitting on the side of my table. But because it's on this part of my hand, I'm never going to touch anything with it. And, it's there. I can use it again. And then when it's all done, I just wipe it off. Or if you let it dry, you can peel it off. And, little kids at school love to do that all the time, right? They put glue on their hand. But I find that it gets good coverage. It tends to, unless you really gob it on your hand, and there's a little bit here, that's probably the first spot I tapped that got a little excess glue, but usually there's no excess, and I like that. So what we're going to do next is we're going to bring out some of the stamps. And the first one I want to bring out is my sentiment that I'm going to use. One cute cookie. One cute cookie. And I think that is just really fun. So just in case this bothers anybody that I have glue on my hand, I'm just going to wipe it off. Some people would look at that the whole time I'm crafting and be like, ew, she's got glue on her hand. So there we go. It's all gone. So for this, I've got a couple pieces that I'm going to layer up. I've got a piece of Kraft cardstock and a piece of Seabrook. I just had to think there for a minute. Seabrook. And so the Seabrook is 2 3/4 by 2.5. And then this is just a smidge bigger. So this is 2 7/8 by 2 5/8. So it's just a smidge bigger. And I'm going to grab my intense black ink for this. Gonna ink up my one cute cookie. So fun. And I used it earlier, so I didn't need to season it. It had already been used and not washed. Apologies. And now I'm going to have to bring it a little bit closer to me because I will never get it lined up otherwise. Because I cut it so it's really close in size to the stamp. And I'm going to give it a good squish with the heel of my hand because my fingers don't squish very well on my right hand. They just don't. There we go. One cute cookie. How cool is that? And we're going to layer it up with the Kraft paper. But I also want to do one other thing. Maybe I'll get it on there first and then I'll do the other thing. So let me just grab my glue. Oh, there was a thing. Again, I'm getting ahead of myself. Hey, Jillian. Happy to catch a live. Awesome. I'm going to round the corners of this as well. Just a teeny tiny little bit. Happy to have you, Jillian. Oh, Ketty is watching too. Awesome, awesome. So I'm just going to do a tiny little round. I think it's just kind of fun to round all the corners on these pieces as we're going. And it just kind of stylizes them a bit, I guess. And add some liquid glue to that. Normally I don't use my liquid glue quite this much, but as I said, waiting. Gotta order some more. So we're going to stick that down there like that. And then we're going to round the corners of the Kraft. And that's why I wait to do the Kraft corners until I have the Seabrook on there. Because then I can kind of follow the corners that I already rounded. Right? Because I'm not using a corner rounder. I'm just using my scissors. So my corners might be a little off. You know. Just a little. Oh, and so then our next step is I want to take my gel pen, and this is the number 10, and I'm actually going to fill in the space. So in here on this word cute, there's a space in the middle, and I thought, wouldn't it just look a little bit more almost like a picture my life card if we had that as white instead of the Seabrook? And it just kind of make it pop a little bit. So I'm just, and thankfully it's just the right size for the number 10 gel pen to just quickly go and fill that in like so. And then because we're doing these letters, I figured we might as well do the word cookie too, because it's got all those nice little polka dots around the word cookie, kind of looking like little cookie sprinkle decorations. We may as well whiten those up too, just a smidge. And I can also see that I need to re-ink my black, intense black stamp pad. I should do that tonight before the crop starts tomorrow morning. So it's ready to go. So just going all the way around, adding a little bit of white onto those little dots. Kind of coloring outside of the lines there for a second. There we go. Sometimes you just have to color outside the lines, right? And the K. This is just a little detail. It's not something you'd have to do, but I just thought, you know, it'll look a little more special this way. Yeah, it does. It looks like icing, right? And we were discussing this this morning during We Craft Wednesdays, that if you have the embossing pens, where you can add the Versamark with the embossing pen and then sprinkle on your embossing powder, you could totally do that and actually do the embossing in there. And that would be fun too. So now what I want to do is I want to add some foam tape to the back of this, but I'm going to let it sit for just a minute because we just went and put gel pen on there. So we don't want to disturb it too much. So I need some cookies to go on my cookie rack. So I have a piece of Kraft cardstock here because I'm going to make gingerbread men to go on here. And I'm going to do the stamping with White Daisy pigment ink. And I'm going to do heat embossing. So I'm going to use my anti-static pouch just to give a nice little dusting on there and to remove any static. It's just a starchy powder. And the White Daisy is a pigment ink, which means you can do heat embossing with it. It will make the embossing powder stick. So I've got that. And when you're doing white, it's nice to start out with the white ink already, right? And then I'm also going to need a piece of scrap paper to collect up the extra embossing powder. I've got my white embossing powder, which is getting low, but I think I've had this for about 6 years. So it makes sense that it's getting a bit low. And then I have the cute little gingerbread man. Oh my goodness, he's so sweet with his little bow tie. And so we're going to ink him up in the White Daisy, just like that. And we're going to stamp him on there. And I'm going to try and get all 3 of them on there, because I want 3 cookies. Last night at 30 Minutes Stash Dash, we had 3 of a kind come up as our embellishment. And so that meant that whatever embellishment you were going to use 3 of them. So I guess that was in my brain when I was planning this. And so 3 cookies it is. So just sprinkle that on, give it a little tap, and you'll see that there's no embossing powder sitting in places where I don't want it because we did that anti-static pouch. And then with our scrap paper, we can just lift that up, make it into a funnel, tip that excess back in there. Always close this up because that's just an accident waiting to happen in my craft room. And then I've got my heat tool, just give it a moment to heat up. The thing that I do with my heat embossing is I like to keep my page or piece of paper that I'm embossing up off of my work surface. And that lets the hot air swirl around the paper, which actually does help it go quicker. But it also means that I'm not going to damage my work surface if my tabletop finish doesn't like heat, or, you know, anything that's on my table doesn't like heat. And then you just work your way across and you get to watch the fun transformation as it goes from dull and powdery to shiny and glossy. It's always so fun, and it really doesn't take long. You also want to aim the heat tool away from your hand, or use a pair of tweezers to hold it. So now hopefully you can see there in the video that it's gone nice and shiny now. How fun is that? And we can take the thin cut from here and scooch that out of the way, because I got to bring my machine up here, my ancient machine. So I like to do my stamping and everything first, and then I like to do my die cutting. And that's because I can line up the die cut with my stamped image way better than I can try to stamp on a particular size of, you know, object. Particular size. Because I can just look at it right now and I can line it up, and then I can stick this down and it will come out hopefully the way I want it. It just popped up there. I'm reusing washi tape from before, and I think it's been overly used. So now I need to grab a new piece of washi tape. Especially with Kraft cardstock. I find Kraft cardstock has just that different texture from our regular colored cardstocks or White Daisy. It's got sort of that fibery texture, and so it the washi tape only works for so long, and then it's like, nope, not gonna stick anymore. And if you don't have good enough washi tape to start with, it doesn't stick. So just gonna pop that in there, run it through. Oop, static. Look at that. Stuck right to it. And there's one little gingerbread man. So fun. Isn't that faster than actually making gingerbread cookies? Jillian, you just bought a heat gun. You're so excited to try embossing. Yay! Yay! Yes, the white pigment ink or any pigment ink, even Distress Oxide inks, you can use those for heat embossing. Normally I use Versamark ink, which is, you know, kind of the intended ink. But any pigment ink where it stays wet for a little moment, that allows you to get the embossing powder on there and hold it there. Sometimes I cut these out ahead of time, but I decided to make you all sit and watch me. Watch me cut out little guys, because it's just so fun. I do find that I have to take the washi tape off to line it up. There we go. So cute. Oh my goodness. I just think these little gingerbread men's, and they're a perfect size for cards too. Or wouldn't it be cute to make a whole border across a scrapbooking page with all little gingerbread guys? That would be fun. And because you use the white heat embossing, there's really nothing else that you have to do to this, right? You don't have to color it. You don't have to do anything. And one thing that I always do, quite often I leave the plastic and everything, and just while I'm working, I just pop it on top. So it's stuck to the magnet, and it's not likely to go AWOL while I'm working. Go missing. Okay, so where is our card base? There we go. Oh, there's one more thing we need to die cut. I'll get to that in a minute. So I'm going to use some foam tape on this, and I'm going to use the thin foam tape. And just pop it up, because it's fun to add some dimension. One thing that's hard to kind of pop up is this cooling rack, just because the nature of it, there's no real good spot to add foam tape. So it's nice to pop other things up, right? So let's just peel the backing off. And this is the thin stuff. So it's not adding a lot of bulk, just a little bit. And we'll stick this on here like so. And I want to kind of have a little bit of the things poking out around it like that. So cute. And then our little guys, we're going to pop them up too. Let's see. I think I can use this. I think it's wide enough. Yep. So let's just add some foam tape on the back of all of them. They're so obliging. And I just realized I'm not looking at comments. So let me take a look while I peel off the backing here. Hey, Sue, nice to see you're watching. So then let's add one little guy, and we'll kind of tuck one of his toes under there, and he's kind of half off the rack. When you buy clothes, you can buy it off the rack. Why not cookies? And then we'll give him a little friend up here, kind of hanging out. And then let's add another little guy, but we'll kind of put him down here at the side. And maybe we'll tuck his little foot under at the bottom there, and then have his little hand coming on top. So it's kind of adding a little bit of fun and play to this right there. And then I also want the piping bag for the icing. So let me just grab my ink again, my black ink. I had stuff sitting here and somehow there it is. It's right in front of me and I don't see it. I've just got some white daisy because usually piping bags are white, generally, and it's white icing. So I'm just going to do, with the intense black ink on white daisy. I don't have to color it in if I don't want to. You could if you wanted to, or use colored paper. And let's bring back in the lovely machine. Let's grab this and some washi tape. Look at this washi tape. It's even in keeping with the baking theme because it's got little cupcakes on it. There we go. A little washi tape. Line it up there. Like so. Now a few people were noticing that the thin cut for this piping bag could double as a carrot. In case anybody was wondering, it could double as a carrot. So there's always sometimes fun little things that you can do with these thin cuts, and even the little star and the tree and stuff. They don't have to look like cookies. You could just cut them out and use them as border pieces. The snowman, the heart, any of them. They don't have to be cookies. So there we go. Awesome. Putting this back onto my magnet sheet so I don't lose it. Get rid of this. Like so. And this one I'm going to add with some regular size foam tape. The not the thin stuff. And you know what? I'll even use my non-stick scissors to trim that down. Not very many scissors can go right through foam tape like that without getting sticky and gummy, but these are fabulous. There we go. Add some foam tape. Let's layer this on. I love how fun this looks. Oh my goodness. So fun. One cute cookie. So I'm going to put it so that it's right at the end of this word one. So it looks like it's been iced. I'm going to scooch it down just a smidge. There we go. Stick that on there like that. And then we have the really fun freshly baked dots. And these are really fun. If you have seen the ones that were in Crisp Air, they're very similar. They're hearts and stars and dots, but these are obviously coordinating colors. And even these ones that are kind of the sea brick color, they're glittery. How cool is that? So fun. Gotta love glitter. So let's grab our piercing tool because I find that's the easiest for me to try and lift things. Let's grab a little pink dot and one of the little glittery ones like that, and maybe a big yellow one. We'll stick it over here like that, and maybe a medium little. I love that there's so many different shapes now. I'm mostly using circles on here, but you can mix it up, right? And this kind of looks like all the little sprinkles and sweetie treats that you would be putting on your cookie decorating. There's a little heart for our one cute cookie. There we go. That is our card. Almost finished. Almost finished. I decided why not add a sentiment to the inside. But the second sentiment that's on here, I didn't really want to put them together on the same card. So I decided to bring in our Change the World stamp set, which is the Operation Smile stamp set. And I've got the sentiment, your smile makes life more beautiful. And I thought that would work with one cute cookie. So let's open up our card. Oop, I used foam tape on the edge. I wasn't paying attention. I'll have to fix that later. But let's stamp our one cute cookie. Your smile makes life more beautiful. Right in the center there. Lovely. I don't always put a sentiment on the inside, but that stamp set is just perfect for things like that. Let me just fix this foam tape. While we're doing this, we're just going to scooch it over a smidge so that it's not hanging over into the back. There we go. There we go. There is our fun fold cookie card created using that Freshly Baked Scrapbooking Stamp set, and then it's got that nice little cute little surprise. You've got lots of spots for writing on the inside, and if you wanted, you could even add a little bit more decoration, but I think that looks just lovely the way it is. Yes, the candy dots are beautiful on here, I think. So let me show you. Remember how I said about cutting the diagonal going from the top down? So if you do it the other way, from the left side, top down, then you end up with a card that opens up like this. And that's perfectly acceptable too, right? So either way you create them, it makes a beautiful little card. So we've got our flamingo cardstock cut into the 8.5 by 11, and then on the diagonal, after we did our scoring, and then we added in our scarlet cardstock, then pewter cardstock cut with that fun cookie rack thin cut. And I love how many layers we've got going on here. Then we stamped out our sentiment on Seabrook and added some of the Kraft paper in behind that matches with our 3 little gingerbread mans that we did our heat embossing with. And then, of course, our piping bag for our icing, kind of coming out of our one. We did a little bit of white gel pen just to change the color up on the inside there. And then those gorgeous freshly baked dots. Love it. It is so fun and cute. Yeah, it's a left-handed card, right, Karen? This is for the lefties. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's a quick and easy card, kind of base to make for a fun fold. And if you create a card that looks like this, pop a photo of it in the comments. I would love, love, love to see it. All right. Have a wonderful evening and hope to see you guys tomorrow for the crop that's starting. I put a post on there just a little while ago to take note of some changes in the scheduled times. There's a change for the afternoon craft and chat because this is the first crop I've done where my daughter was actually in person at school because she's been online for so long. So I had to accommodate for picking her up from school, and I didn't think about it until today. And so the afternoon time has shifted to an hour earlier. So we're starting at noon instead of 1 o'clock Eastern time. So we're starting at noon in the afternoon for the craft and chat. And Thursday evening, so tomorrow night, our evening craft and chat is going to start half an hour later because it's also Meet the Teacher night. Gotta love the schedules we got around here. But then everything else will be pretty much the same. So, but just take note of that. All right, toodaloo. Have a great night. Bye.